program was intended to be run secretly. It was intended to be run as a counterintelligence program would be run against, say, Soviet spies, that you spread false information about and among the black group so that they would shoot each other.
Well, in California, there was a rivalry between the Black Panthers and a group called U.S. United Slaves. And documents now show that that materials were sent and information given to the United Slaves in an effort to get them to make an attack on the Panthers. And in fact, there was an attack made and 2 Panthers were killed.
The FBI would get hotel stationery, type a letter saying that Connie had met with Huey and David, and they were really hostile toward Eldridge, and he should be very careful about how he deals with them. And it would be, the signature would be C. Then Connie would get back to Algiers and tell us about her meeting. We already had this letter. And then she'd say, but I didn't send you that letter. So then we'd say, oh, she's lying.
In one situation, the FBI used a fugitive named George Sams, and they chased him across the country, and they would raid each Panther office just as he left, but they would use his supposed presence there as an excuse.
So the government made it very crucial to their success that it looked as if these things just happened by accident. There was no connection between the plan of the FBI and the fact that so many Panthers were arrested, so many of them went to trial, so many of them marriages broke up, so many terrible things happened. However, when these things are happening to you, you know it's not an accident. You know it's not random. We knew at the time there was a conspiracy. We knew it was planned. We knew it was coordinated. We just had no idea how sophisticated the plan or how sophisticated the coordination was, and or the collaboration between the various agencies. We didn't know it was called Cointelpro, that involved the Department of Defense, it involved the White House, it involved the CIA and the FBI in coordination. We didn't know all that, but we knew they were doing these things against us. They were doing them deliberately, and we knew that they were wrong.
They were able to put a cover on the movement as best as they saw fit through Cointelpro, and the best way was to keep it quiet. Even today, don't talk about it, because it still exists.
And what happened, it just went like this. No political, no politics. Next thing I know, I'm convicted of murder.
They knew that they had this unsolved murder, and what we were told was that if in fact Pratt was not convicted in the shootout trial, which in fact he wasn't, then they had to come up with something else. They weren't going to let him out of jail.
And like I said, I just hadn't thought much of it because I was charged with the Tate LeBlanc murders before Charles Manson was charged with it. You know, because they had off the pig on the wall in blood. They picked me up for that before they even suspected Charles Manson. That'll give you an idea of how often I would be picked up and detained.
At the time the tennis court murder occurred, I remember that Pratt came into the Bay Area, that he and Bobby Seale, David Hilliard came over to the place I was staying in San Francisco. We met one evening. The next day and the next 2 days, there were meetings at David Hilliard's house in Oakland, and he was there all the time.
No matter what he did in 1968 or 69 as a Black Panther, he was arrested and charged with a murder. He went to trial, and he didn't know the following things. Neither he nor the defense attorney knew that the FBI was communicating daily with the LA Police Department to try to get him arrested and convicted of some kind of offense.
The fact that the government was spying on us meant that they would watch all of us. It's not a matter of only Pratt. They were watching Bobby Seale. They were watching David Hilliard. They were watching me. They would follow us. They knew where we went. They would tap our phones so that if all of us come to one house and have meetings for 2 days, they're going to know this.
Nobody knew that the chief witness against him was also an FBI informant threatened by the FBI with a machine gun charge. He was, Butler was out on parole at that time, or on probation. He was alleged to have had a machine gun. The FBI could have locked him up for 5 years if they'd wanted to. So all of the circumstances were set to create a witness against Pratt who would cooperate rather than go to jail himself.
By the time his case came to trial, the party had been divided. So you could say that as a consequence of COINTELPRO insinuations, COINTELPRO actions, COINTELPRO desires, COINTELPRO goals had been accomplished in the sense that the party was split. And Geronimo's trial, Geronimo's destruction, you might say, was a consequence of that kind of activity, because he could not, other than me, get anyone to testify where he was.
I have been telling them all along, the lawyers, and speaking in open court, trying to make these assertions, and they were looking at me like I was ego tripping. That would be the thing I would get back a lot. The nigga is ego tripping. And the FBI didn't have nothing to do. Cannot do. And so I would cry. I'm in Folsom Prison in a hole. I'm in a hole here. The communication weren't that good. So I tried the best I could. I wrote different people and to try to expose what I knew. And I knew was FBI involvement.
Pratt didn't know that one of the witnesses had identified somebody else as the murderer a year earlier against him. That didn't come out. He didn't know that the FBI had put informants in his defense camp that were reporting back to the FBI what Pratt and his attorneys were planning and talking about. Clearly, that's a constitutional breach. The FBI, of course, says, well, none of these things really affected his trial. That was just the evidence against him. But the FBI wouldn't release these documents. It took Pratt's attorneys volunteer acting pro bono without fee from 76 until 1979 to drag out of the FBI grudgingly documents that still were heavily censored. You couldn't get certain information because they blacked it out. Finally, when all of the information that could be obtained from the FBI under the Freedom of Information Act was obtained, Pratt goes to the California court and then up to the Court of Appeal and finally to the Supreme Court. And during that process, in 79 and 1980, the FBI said to the state authorities, well, we're telling you all about COINTELPRO and everything we can find, but deliberately kept from the California Attorney General and the court the information that one of their own agents thought Pratt had been framed by the FBI in 1972.
So it's a very political situation. Very political, and it should have never been really handled. The courts are not equipped to handle a case of this magnitude. It should have been handled on an international level, you know. And this is where we've been petitioning more and more and more. In fact, I was invited to speak in Geneva representing political prisoners in this country just last month. But there are difficulties with that, you know. That it should be handled on an international, broader level where people can understand, because you're like asking Jesse James to adjudicate what his brother Frank James did. It's not easy.
In spite of the fact that J. Edgar Hoover is no longer with us, we have some J. Edgar Hoover types. And they do what they can to make sure that the opportunity for self-expression is denied.
And the fact of the matter is that in America, like in every other society, that it's prepared to tolerate injustice in order to maintain the social order.
This is American justice. This is American democracy. And those of you who are familiar with it know that in America, democracy is hypocrisy. Now, if I'm wrong, put me in jail. But if you can't prove that a democracy is not hypocrisy, then don't put your hands on me. Democracy is hypocrisy. If democracy means freedom, why are our people free? If democracy means justice, why don't we have justice? If democracy means equality, why don't we have equality?